Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the August 1st North Carolina Local Government Commission meeting, which we're convening at 1:30 today. I'm calling the meeting to order and asking Cindy Aiken to call the roll to determine a quorum and then go through the meeting procedures and housekeeping items.
You may have accidentally said August 1st, but it's really October. Welcome, good afternoon. We usually start with your homes. Here at the vote. Secretary Marshall is here in person, and Secretary Penny.
Here.
So I'm participating virtually. Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Here.
Is here in the room. Mr. Butler.
Here.
There he is. Thank you. Is participating virtually. Ms. Harvey on virtual. No?
Ms. Harvey has connected virtually.
Okay, all right. A chance to test her mic.
And Cindy, did Dr. Holmes say that she was present? She's connected if you want to circle back.
Okay.
Hi, this is Ms. Harvey.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We do. We hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Auditor Holmes, can you hear us? There she is. There she is. Okay, Auditor Holmes is virtual today. And Councilwoman Hoffman.
Present.
Thank you. Virtual Mr. Philbeck.
Here.
Hope everything's okay in your area.
I don't have any power, but other than that, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And Treasurer Falwell is
Here.
in person. The staff present are Debbie Tomasco, Secretary of the Local Government Commission, Director of Debt Management, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Fiscal Management, Kendra Boyles, Stephanie Basic, Assistant Director of Debt Management. I'm Cindy Aiken, Legal Counsel. Housekeeping matters. Meeting proceedings are being recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the department's recording of public meetings policy. Will everyone please remember to identify yourself when you're speaking? If you are participating virtually, please mute yourself when you are not speaking. If we lose power or an AV connection, the meeting will continue. The broadcast may also continue. We'll deal with that. We hope we don't have to. The agenda is posted at www.nctreasurer.com at the LGC page. Changes to the agenda will be announced during the meeting, and heads up, we do have a couple changes. The votes will be taken by roll call. Without objection, members' motions and seconds will be considered a yes vote unless you want to change your mind and indicate otherwise during the vote. As Debbie mentioned earlier, the microphones in the ceiling are extremely sensitive to whispers, paper rustling, package opening, and please feel free to step into the lobby if you want to have a private conversation. And thank you for your attendance and your attention.
Thank you. Just to remind you, Cindy already has that any correspondence, whether by email or on personal cell phones during this meeting, regarding the function of this meeting will be considered public record. With that, I'm going to stand and I'm going to ask you to stand and join us in our Pledge of Allegiance and ask Secretary Marshall at a momentous time in our state for her to lead us in the salute to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you, Secretary Marshall. I'd like to, some of us participate in the council state meeting this morning, and I'll say to this group what I said yesterday. There can only be one governor at a time, and it's very important for those that are in Western North Carolina to do everything we can to work with the governor and his staff as he works with local, state, federal officials, nonprofits, to make sure that the needs of Western North Carolina are ultimately met. I'd like for you to join us in just a moment of silence, not only for those that have lost their life, but also those that are missing in action with the catastrophe that's hit the western part of our state. If you join me for a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. This office is pledged retirement system, property system, as well as the investment management division and all divisions and local government commission to work closely with these organizations. Even in 2024, so much of what we do in this building has to do with the U.S. Postal Service. So when people are thinking about all the agencies being coordinated, we can't forget about mailboxes and things that people expect to receive in mailboxes. So we'll be working tirelessly, not only to meet the needs of our customers, but also to remain in the check delivery business. We have some special guests here today. One is the Majority Leader of the North Senate, Senator Newton. Thank you for being here. Secondly, is a member of the North Carolina House of Representatives and Freshman Caucus Leader, Representative Crutchfield. Thank you for being here, as well as other guests. In addition to that, over the last 2 months, I have extended an invitation to both candidates who are going to be sitting in this seat 3 months from now, who are running to be the keeper of the public purse, to join us either in person or virtually. And that's the LGC, the Banking Commission, Retirement Division, Debt Affordability Commission, Defined Contribution, Supplemental Retirement Board, State Health Plan Board, all the other boards that I chair or either sit on. So Brad Briner is here today. He's one of the candidates, and welcome you. I'll speak for him. He probably can't stay during the whole, but we're glad for you to be here. And as I said, I've extended this invitation to both candidates for North Carolina Treasurer, and off and on, they are able to join us either virtually or in person. So thank you very much. Members, conflict of interest statement, please take a moment to review the agenda. Does anyone have a present potential or appearance of a conflict of interest regarding the matters that are before us? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, and without objection, anybody who makes a motion or second to a motion will be considered a yes vote. Hearing no objection, entertain a motion to approve the September 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Thank you, Auditor. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Burns. Mr. Burns, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. September 10th minutes, Holmes and Burns. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carried. An Auditor Holmes, you might want, I don't know if it's our volume or yours. Your voice is a little bit faint, so I want to be able to hear you. Go ahead.
There's a possibility that Treasurer candidate Wesley Harris is joining us virtually. So if that's the case, Mr. Harris, thank you for joining us. With that, I'll now turn the meeting over to talk about the FPIC units. But before doing so, just call your attention to attachment A. And by the way, we've asked for the temperature to be turned down a little bit in here. So that should be happening quickly. Attachment A is our OPEB report. It talks about the unfunded healthcare, pension, and LEO liabilities for the communities and applicants that are coming before the local government commission. As I've said in previous meetings, the most unfunded, the biggest unfunder of unfunded liabilities in this state itself. Our OPEB report was just released a few months ago. We have nearly a $35 billion unfunded healthcare liability for the state of North Carolina. If you want to know some context to that, this is a few years old, but according to Pew Research, our unfunded liability in North Carolina for healthcare liabilities for public service employees is right behind the state of Illinois, the same state of Illinois that you hear about all the time. So even though NC stands for nothing compares as far as surpluses, paying off the state general obligation debt and a well-funded pension plan, we are at the bottom of the pile almost in terms of our unfunded liability of our state health plan. So to produce this report is not to draw attention to the local entities that also have huge unfunded liabilities, including the two biggest counties in our state and the two biggest cities in our state, but to mention the fact that the biggest offender is the state of North Carolina itself in terms of its unfunded liability. So with that, I'll now turn the meeting over to Jennifer to present the FPIC, Benson and Bessemer City.
Thank you, Treasurer. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Wimmer, Director of the Debt Management Section. The first items we're going to talk today about are the financial performance of units. There are several notes in this section that I would like to make now. Benson, with their lead service line inventory project, actually right before this meeting has the unit itself has withdrawn this particular application to look at another route of paying for this. So that will not be on at all. Bessemer City, the actual attachments are all combined in attachment C. But Kendra will speak to their FPIC at this time.
Good afternoon. Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management Section. I just wanted to point out to you all some of the financial performance indicators of concern that we had for Bessemer City. We deem these to be material concerns, and they are concerns that have led to the unit appearing on the unit assistance list for the first time since 2016. So two of these FPICs are related to their general fund. The first is their fund balance available as a percentage of expenditures. The other is their appropriated fund balance in their general fund that the appropriation of resulted in a decline in their fund balance. So in recognition of these financial condition issues in the general fund, the unit did in fiscal year 25 budget increase their ad valorem tax rate from 0.45 to 0.60. Their water and sewer fund had three financial performance indicators of concern: their quick ratio, their operating loss, and a negative unrestricted cash. The negative quick ratio is attributed to a large account payable they had on their books for a capital project that was associated with a bond anticipation note. So this is a timing issue that caused them to have a quick ratio in the negative. So they anticipate being able to rectify that issue. They did a drawdown on the ban. It's worth noting, you'll see that their operating loss in the water and sewer fund, when the data was submitted to us, it was at $5.6 million loss. We did some research and realized that the amount that was submitted to us was in error, and that has been corrected. The actual operating loss calculation should be $650,000. So still a loss, but different than $5.6 million. This operating loss, and then in addition to the concerning lack of unrestricted cash that they have, is anticipated to be relieved with the increase in rates in their future budgets. And also they're conducting a review of the administrative charges from their general fund to their water and sewer. So they anticipate that they'll be able to strengthen the health of that water and sewer fund. The town finance officer and town manager have been responsive to all our inquiries. They provided a thorough response and a plan of action that, if it was implemented timely and appropriately, should result in improvement of their financial condition. So I believe that this debt service request of only $72,000 will not have a significant impact on their financial condition. For those units that are appearing on your consent agenda.
Just to clarify the amount, 78,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, 78.
Yeah, just wanted to be sure.
And again, that will be under the miscellaneous action items on the consent agenda. The next unit that we're talking about that has applied for approval is Edgecombe County with an installment purchase, installment purchase with an animal shelter and other county buildings, $5.5 million. This will be held by JP Morgan, 15 years at an interest rate of 3.45%. And Kendra will discuss their FPICs.
So Edgecombe County is coming before you with 3 financial performance indicators of concern that are related to their internal controls. They don't have any indicators of concern for fiscal year 23 related to their general fund or their water and sewer fund. That in their the internal control related issues were that they had some budget violations at the adopted ordinance level, and the unit in their response attributes these budget violations to the implementation of GASB 96, but also recognizes that some of those violations were a result of not properly monitoring their budget. The other indicator is that the auditor identified multiple material weaknesses and significant deficiency related to prior period adjustments that had to be made. This resulted in adjustments to the fund balance in the millions of dollars. And then also the deficit in fund balances for some of the funds were identified as material weaknesses. The unit responded to these issues by clarifying that the reason for the deficit in the fund balances was due to grant reimbursements. They identified this when they did some grant reconciliations and showed that not all the projects had been properly reimbursed. Another item concern was that the unit was late in making a debt service payment and was late in submitting information to the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board through their EMA portal. Additionally, when the unit did report, they did not disclose that the payment was made late. Another issue that was identified was that the debt service coverage ratio, that they were in violation of that. Their debt service coverage ratio should have been 100%. They were at 49%. To address this, the unit did end up increasing their water and sewer rates in fiscal year 24, and that is what they believe would help with their debt service coverage ratio. They have provided a thorough response to the FPICs and provided us with a plan of action. And again, they do not have any financial condition issues on their general fund or their water and sewer fund, and this debt that they're asking for would be serviced out of their general fund. So I'm confident that this debt service related to the request today would not have a detrimental effect on their financial condition.
Yes, ma'am.
These 3, and I'm including Benson in here, which breaks my heart to see this long list for the town I represent. It's the Senate, but anyway. We changed the forms about 2 years ago or something like that. And in this one in particular, there were unit data that I didn't understand what they were. And maybe that's the shorthand language that you all use internally that doesn't always translate to lay people like me. Because when I see material weakness, I generally want to know what it is rather than an assessment that it's material, because that's somehow I grade things. And violations of bond covenants, yeah, but what were they? Was it a late payment due to something else, or just what were they violating of their bond covenants? That makes a difference to me when I look at these. And the answers are just more a recitation back without specifics in them, or the responses. So I don't know, maybe other members are understand these really, really well with this shorthand language, and but I'm a little bothered that I don't understand it better off of what's on this chart compared to what we used to have years ago.
Right, and I've tried to provide you with some more details in the summary here, but what I'm hearing you say is that you'd like more details in the
Right,
written.
like I don't know what any of the bond covenant violations are from reading the letters and anything.
Right, and for those, I go over those, and in Edgecombe County, it was the debt service coverage ratios required on their bond to be 100%, and that they were at 49%. And similar to in Norlina that I'll discuss, but I hear your input and we'll make that change to give you better details.
Thank you. I'm really pleased that it wasn't a $5 million shortage.
Yes.
Any other questions from board members? And since the majority of the board's joining us virtually, I know you have an electronic way of informing us that you have your hand raised, but raising your hand's also not a bad thing. So you've heard the FDIC units. Is there anything else you were?
I have another Norlina, one more. Norlina has 7 FPICs related to their water and sewer fund and internal controls. Now in Norlina, their water and sewer fund had a quick ratio of 0.37, meaning that they had more current liabilities than they did current assets. And their fund operations resulted in a $544,000 loss. And they have no unrestricted cash, meaning that all their cash is either tied up in customer deposits or their debt service coverage ratio requirements. To address these concerns, the unit did increase their rates in fiscal year 23 when they realized that those increases were not going to make the kind of difference that they felt like they would, or enough of a difference. They did increase their rates in fiscal year 24 and then again in fiscal year 25 in hopes to be able to cover and eliminate that loss. The auditor classified multiple issues as material weaknesses. So those material weaknesses were that they submitted their audit 10 months, they were 6 months past the due date and 10 months past the end of fiscal year end. So the auditor deemed that to be a material weakness. The unit has implemented some procedures now to identify those problems in financial reporting earlier. And as they also had a segregation of duties issue. So they have implemented some procedures to strengthen internal controls to get their board more involved in looking and reviewing financial reports. And that should help to strengthen their internal controls. They also had an issue of the amount of ad valorem taxes that they budgeted versus what they collected. There was a difference that was a higher percentage than what we deemed as the threshold. They were at 3.66, I think, and we deemed that to be 3%. So they have gone into conversations with the county. The county collects their taxes, and they put in some procedures in place so that the county will be enforcing the collection of those taxes and more, this is my word, fervently collecting those delinquent taxes. So in addition, the unit was not in compliance with their bond service coverage ratio. And that requirement in the particular bonds were that they have 110% coverage of their debt service. They were down to 66%. So they are anticipating that with these increases in rates they've implemented since fiscal year 23, that they'll be able to bring that coverage up and in compliance. And then today they are coming to you all for funding for a lift station mitigation improvements. And with those improvements, they expect that will help in their expenses, but also these increases in rates that they have implemented should help be funding that debt service. So we believe that they have provided us with a plan of action that implemented timely would be address those financial concerns and those internal control weaknesses. So I believe that the debt service related to this request today would not further erode their financial condition.
Mr. Treasurer, Edgecombe County representatives are available virtually, and Mr. Reese from Town of Norlina is here with us in person.
Mr. Treasurer.
Yes.
Just to give the commission members more detail, the bank RFP came back for Norlina, and PNC is a one-year interim construction loan at 5.32% to be taken out with a US.
Any other questions about those? Mr. Burns?
Just, you believe that the plan that Carolina put together to address the deficiencies is going to take care of it?
I believe so.
But the staff has concluded so?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. With everything going on in the west, there's also some things going on in the east. So our hearts also go out to the folks of Edgecombe County and Rocky Mountain, Nash County. It's part of the consent agenda, but Mayor Robertson's joining us virtually. But person, I think we have Peter Barney, Ken Hunter. Barney's the interim city manager now, Ken Hunter, and Connor Cruz with McGuire Woods. So I just wanted to acknowledge them. In Norlina, in person, we have Blaine Reese. Blaine, how are you? So Director of Operations for Norlina, so thank you for coming. Edgecombe County, Ted Cole's here in person, FA. Eric Evans, Linda Barfield, Natalie Bess, and Joseph, all with us virtually from Edgecombe County. So I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. Also, I hope that is able to join us because it's part of the consent agenda, Tony McDowell, Asheville Finance Director of Asheville, North Carolina. So I just wanted to acknowledge all those individuals before I will consider a motion to approve the two items that have been presented to staff on the FPIC units of Bessemer City as well as Norlina.
Look at number 7.
Okay.
C.
Yeah. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay.
You're right.
We're good.
Do we see any problem combining this in one motion? Okay. Without objection, I'll entertain the motion, take staff's recommendation regarding Edgecombe County, Norlina, and Bessemer City.
Yep. Okay, make it clear. Bessemer City is not being voted on now. It's part of the consent agenda
I see.
for all the lead line service.
I see.
So right now, we only need to take Edgecombe County and Norlina. We're good.
My mistake.
No, well, it's confusing because things changed.
This is a little different format that I had over here, so that's why, but that's no excuse. So do I hear the motion?
So moved, Norlina County.
Second, Nancy Hoffman.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Motion second being made. Any further discussion regarding staff's recommendation? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. So there's no confusion. We're voting on 2 units, Edgecombe County's application and Norlina. Secretary Marshall, second Hoffman. Auditor Holmes.
I think you said I can't hear.
We can't hear you. She said yes.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We got it now. Secretary Penny,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Butler, you're muted.
No, he's
No,
blinking.
he's blinking.
Okay. Mr. Butler, can you hear me?
Looks frozen.
Here. I see.
He
Yeah.
says it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck,
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Before we go to the consent agenda, I just wanted to also announce that I have 2 more meetings as chair of the local government commission. One of those meetings, we're going to invite the League of Municipalities as well as the County Commissioner Association in to tell us what they're doing to help some of these communities that are in trouble. Because all these cities and all these counties pay dues to these associations. And our staff cannot do it all. And so we want to hear an update from the League of Municipalities, the County Commissioner Association, about what they're doing to help some of these troubled units. In addition to that, I believe there's millions and millions of dollars that has been appropriated to one or both of those organizations regarding systems that can help get some of these bookkeeping functions standardized so that they're more auditable, so that people get audits in. So sometime over the next 2 meetings, that will occur. So I just wanted to announce that to everybody. And lastly, at the next LGC meeting, whoever the treasurer-elect is will be sitting up here with me if they choose to be here for this meeting, as well as all the other meetings that I chair. So just wanted to give y'all some visuals about what you can expect in the next few weeks and months. With that, we now have our consent agenda. Asheville, through miscellaneous items, ending with the town of Andrews. The verbatim, the EQ loans for lead service line inventory projects and North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. The North Carolina Housing Finance Agency was originally on this agenda, but there was a small technical change that had to happen that was not in the previous meeting. If anybody would like more clarification about that, I'll be glad to provide that. But how the agency itself reached out to us to let us know.
Mr. Treasurer, that was the information that was emailed this morning to members, that write-up on the miscellaneous action item. Just 2 more clarifications on the consent agenda. Lake Waccamaw had been listed under your FPIC units. That is now actually on the consent agenda. That was just mistakenly essentially placed under the FPIC units. Lake Waccamaw actually is on the consent agenda. And on the Asheville item, your amount should read $42 million, not $40 million. And small change on the consent agenda there. So again, 3 changes to the consent agenda as it's printed. One is Asheville going to $42 million. One is adding the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency item. And one is including Lake Waccamaw on the consent agenda and not on the FPIC list.
Okay. Thank you all. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
So moved.
Mr. Burns makes a motion.
Second, Philbeck.
Phil Beck seconds that motion. Any further discussion? Before I call the vote, was Tony able to join us, McDowell, from
Yes.
Asheville? Tony, can you hear us?
Yes, hello y'all, we can hear you.
You may not have heard my opening remarks, but just to repeat, what everybody else has said, we stand ready to provide all the services we can to help you in your recovery process. And I know right now you're not in recovery mode, you're in rescue mode. And so I just wanted you to know that. And I know there's some creative things going on in Asheville. Some of the swimming pools, people have not drained them yet. So they're scooping water out of swimming pools to put it in the tank of their toilet so they can flush their toilets. Just whatever it takes. I'm sure that's what the city of Asheville and that community is dealing with. It's trying to be as creative as possible and do whatever it takes. Any small comments you'd like to make, Mr. McDowell?
Sure, I'll chime in and just thank you again for the comments and the offer of assistance. I do have actually in the room. So I'm at our emergency operations center today. We are still very much in the recovery phase. I do have with me our city manager, Deborah Campbell. She may just say a quick hello to you all, but again, thank you all for voting on our items today, and I'll let Deborah say a quick word.
I'd like just to echo what you heard Mr. McDowell say in terms of gratitude for your concern, expressions of support. And I just went out on a tour earlier today, and it's surprisingly devastating the infrastructure. We have a lot of needs here. And so anything that you all can do, we would support you all reaching out to us. So thank you. Appreciate your action on our agenda item as well.
Thank you. I was on Mark Starling's show this morning, and I'll say to this board what I said this morning, that it's ironic that one of the biggest worldwide outreaches in disaster relief is Samaritan's Purse, which has a big command center in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and obviously a home office in Boone, North Carolina. And so nobody wished for this to happen, but having Samaritan's Purse there is should be some benefit given their expertise in dealing with situations like this. Secondly, I'm not saying that to ask people to contribute to Samaritan's Purse, but what I just stated is absolute fact. Secondly, we don't know what the blood needs are in Western North Carolina. I know a lot about this topic, but we do know that we're not going to be collecting blood from citizens in Western North Carolina for a pretty long period of time. So if you would take a pint of blood, then you should give a pint of blood. And if you're as, I don't know how to describe my physicality, but if you weigh what I weigh, you can give double reds, and double reds allow you to give 2 pints at once. And those go specifically for cancer and pediatric patients. It takes 14 minutes longer to give double reds, and you only get stuck half as many times because you can only give half as often. So
You still get cookies and juice.
no sodas, no Lance crackers. But anyway, if everybody just wants to do something and think about how's donating blood going to help us, we're going to be as short in supply as our blood supply is now coming off the summer. It's going to be made worse because, as I say, it's going to be a long time before people in Western North Carolina are able to donate blood. And it's the cheapest way to get a physical in this state is to donate blood, because the testing they do on your blood when you donate a pint of blood is superior, in my opinion, to anything any hospital offers in this state in terms of how sophisticated it is. So if something's wrong with you, they're going to tell you. So thank you, Asheville. Our prayers are going out to you, and just want to let you know that unknown is not unloved. And we're rooting for you and all of Western North Carolina. So we have a motion second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll. Excuse me, I didn't. Is there any further discussion? Didn't look at the screen here. Almost got the Brady Bunch up there. So hearing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Make it clear, no confusion. The consent agenda begins with Asheville, runs through everything that was handed out with the addition of Lake Waccamaw and the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency miscellaneous matter, and including Benson was withdrawn, including Bessemer City with all the other service projects. Motion Burns, second Philbeck. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Deputy Caldwell.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Now we're on to attachment D, Cabarrus County. We'll have Jennifer present the highlights. I will call the list of the representatives who are in the audience, and then the secretary may have some things to say. So Jennifer, we have 2 applications for Cabarrus County. One is the $85 million LOBS for the ACN property acquisition. The other is the $155 million LOBS for school projects and library senior center. Jennifer. So we're going to take these one at a time.
Yes, first. Sorry.
We're gonna fix that. Okay, and just apologies, just since Secretary Marshall raised, the 140 amount is actually will be 155. Just wanted to clarify that. That's just a technical correction on that 155 for the second application.
The first application before you is, as the treasurer said, for $85 million. 42 million would be for the purchase of the ACN building. $20 million would be for renovations to that building, and 23 million towards the construction of the behavioral health center.
And staff's recommendation.
Staff does not recommend approval at this time.
I just want to make it clear that staff's conclusion and recommendation is based on the financing amount and the finding of adequate and not excessive. Staff is not objecting to or have any questions about the need for the building for the Department of for the Health and Human Services or for the need for the Behavioral Health Center. We are not weighing in at all on the need. We believe the county's established that need. Our review and our conclusion is based on the fact that the purchase of the ACN building for $42 million, we found not to meet the adequate but not excessive finding based on a county tax valuation for that building of approximately $22.9 million and a market value appraisal of approximately $23.8 million.
I would like to make a motion on item D, regarding the ACM building to accept staff's recommendation and the approval.
I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer, will we hear from the folks that are here to discuss this after the motion?
And I'll entertain a second to my motion.
I suppose.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We have a second. We have a motion, a second to accept staff's recommendation to deny the application for the $85 million lots for the ACM property. Now we're into discussion. We have joining us today, Steve Morris, chairperson of the board, Wortman, Mike Downs, county manager, Kelly Sifford, assistant city manager, Pugh, assistant county manager, finance director Howden, Hickey, Cabarrus County School Superintendent, Brian Combs, Cabarrus County Director of Construction, Cabarrus County Director of Facilities, Tim Louder, Jonathan Bowers, Cabarrus County Chief Operations Officer, and Carter Associates, represented by Doug Carter and Andrew Carter. So the motion is to accept staff's recommendation to deny this application. Before we call anyone up, because we've had several presentations by Cabarrus County, I think it'd be more productive to see what questions the board has, and as the board has questions that the county people here representing the county can answer, then we'll go through them. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Holmes. Auditor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is regarding whether there are alternative sites that meet their needs that are available within their desired location. What are the alternatives? Because it's important to me to know whether or not this is the only space that can fulfill their needs. Important.
I think what you just asked and what you just said is very important. And I think I'm a very good listener, but I was only able to catch every other word.
My question is, are there any alternatives, alternative locations that they could use to fulfill their needs outside of this particular space?
The question from Alder Holmes, if I heard you correctly, was, are there any alternative spaces that the county can use to meet their needs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask either the county manager or Mr. Morris to comment on that. So the question before you is, heard staff's recommendation. What is your plan B or other options to meet the needs?
Okay, I would interpret that, what is your plan B, a little bit differently from the question that she asked, which was about alternative sites and have we investigated alternative sites? And this site that we have selected is one of 10 different sites that have been investigated by the county over the past, actively over the past 5 years. Actually, over the past 10 years, we've been attempting to find a suitable replacement for the current human services facility, which, as we've mentioned before, is housed in a former Kmart building. I have a list of those sites, but the only one of the other 9 sites that we found might be feasible for this was the one that would require new construction. That is the site where we had estimates between 85 and 130 million dollars to build a replacement facility for our current human services facility that would not include the additional property for the behavioral health facility, which we will acquire on this site. The reason for the range, such a wide range in the cost of that facility, is the configuration of the building. The lowest price is for the very least expensive, long, skinny building that would not require construction of a parking deck. The higher price proposals require construction of a parking deck, so that runs the price up. But that, and I can go into more detail on those locations if you'd like. We've looked at former commercial buildings that are available that did not have adequate parking attached to them. We've also looked at other undeveloped sites. The particular pluses for this site, and I think I've covered that in a Q&A that you've all received, are the fact that it's located on a public transportation line, as well as its proximity to the regional hospital.
Okay. Thank you. Alder Holmes, does that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, for the time being. Mrs. Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I guess my question at this point, what is the amount of square footage that you actually need for these 2 purposes?
We've got about needs of 100. The facility is 140,000 square feet that we will be acquiring. And I think our current building is about, I don't have that figure in front of me now. It's about 103,000 square feet. I do not have the square footage on the behavioral health facility. Anybody have that?
But if you were building these 2 facilities or combined facilities, you know, today, how much square footage would you build?
If we were building, I suspect we would probably build somewhere around 150,000 square feet to allow for future growth. We do have some future growth capability in the 140,000 square feet that we propose to purchase. That complex is actually 2 separate buildings. One of the buildings is more of a high rise, which would be, I think it's 3 or 4 stories tall, which would be the offices. There is a single story auxiliary building there. that we will use for child welfare department, separate from the other portion that does provide some easily accessible visitation space, because we do have a lot of those functions occurring in that facility.
Ms. Hoffman,
Thank you
follow
very much. Yes, no, thank you very much.
up? Ms. Marshall, Secretary Marshall.
I've got two. One is, I know that there's a state appropriation available for the mental health building. If you do not get consent today or sometime soon, what happens to that money? Will you be able to build otherwise? You know, I'm concerned about the fiscal aspects and certainly the high need for mental health.
Right. Well, and of course, as you well know, the price to do that continues to increase every day. There is some limitation on that money, and I'm not sure of the exact.
Our agreements with this.
The agreement with the state is through 2029. So if we're unsuccessful in getting approval on this project, then we will immediately start looking for additional property to construct that facility.
Well, I don't want to be a doomsday person. I can remember sitting in the governor's mansion after Hurricane was Floyd, which was and monies that were committed were taken back by the state for hurricane relief. And so, you know, I would hope that the commitment would be valid. I know it's not their intention to take it away,
Right.
but that dire straits might cause that. My second question is on the question of whether it's adequate and not excessive. The difference seems to be between the one appraisal and the other appraisal. What is your defense of the appraisal differences? What is your understanding that would help make us realize that it is not excessive? And I'm not trying to negate what the staff has said, but, you know, give us your defense on that,
Right.
please.
Yeah, for our analysis as an elected body and making a decision to go forward with this, we are comparing what it would cost us to build a facility, the prices that I quoted just a little bit earlier, versus what we can purchase this facility for. We are trying to save money for the taxpayers. We can purchase this facility for $42 million, invest $20 million in the upgrades, which that will be over a 10-year period of time. As far as end of life on some of the mechanical systems, things of that nature. And so for $62 million, we can accomplish what is going to cost us a minimum of $85 million to do at another location. So for our purposes, and actually, you know, quite frankly, that was a discussion that occurred with our board. We were looking at replacement facilities. They came back with these estimates. And at that point in time, we said, okay, we had looked at this building previously several years ago and thought we could find a less expensive alternative. When we got the estimates back for a new facility, then the sentiment of the board was maybe we need to go back and take another look, because we can actually save money by purchasing this existing building over constructing a new one. So I think from my estimation, when you look at the adequate but not excessive, I think the excessive piece would be if we were going to spend an additional $20 to $25 million to build a new building when we could do it for this price.
Follow up. We'll follow up later if you like.
I appreciate that. I did have one and then I was following what you said.
Mr. Burns, just a moment. I don't know what chapter and verse, but the Behavioral Health Center appropriation did have a different shelf life on it than I think it does now. And the information you got was correct. It's 5 years from now is when that money has to be spent. It's my memory's good. Secondly, I know exactly what Secretary Marshall was talking about as far as takebacks and clawbacks and everything else that had the word back in it as we were trying to get through the recession, I guess, of 2001 after our country was attacked on 9/11. So both of those are good questions.
I do remember what my follow-up was.
Yes.
Obviously, there's been a lot of communication for and against coming up. On your facility in your renovated Kmart building, is it a pretty clear consensus that you really need to do something for that aspect of your services to your citizens, that physical location is inadequate? I mean, is there pretty good community census that you really do need a new social services department, health department?
I would say yes, there is. And there are a couple of different factors that play into that. One of those is that facility actually, when it was placed there about 25 years ago, was considered to be on a temporary basis. The rapid growth that has occurred in the county over the years and the number of needs that continue to come up, the building has been altered during that time. Originally, when we moved in there, it was our entire social services department, our health department, and several other functions. During that time, some of those functions have been moved out to other locations as growth has occurred, so that building is continued to be used. It is from an employment standpoint, we're certainly, there are several different goals that we're trying to accomplish. One of those is location. When that social services department was located there, that was considered to be the center of that client base, the people that use those services. We find that over the years that has shifted, and we need to be a little more central location than what we have now. That is more on the northern end of the county, which makes it extremely difficult for those municipalities in the southern part of the county to get access to it. So this move helps that situation and gets it in a more central location. Also, as is true with just about any company or government you talk to, it is increasingly more difficult to attract and retain quality employees. The work environment that is provided for our folks in that former building is not ideal. There are no windows in the building with the exception of one or two outside rooms. It is extremely congested and not a good environment for our folks. So there are multiple goals that we're trying to accomplish there. Of course, we have to look at the client base as well, trying to make it more accessible for them and choosing a location that's on a public transportation line is important. Also, this location, as I mentioned, close to the hospital, is easily accessible to the interstate as well, which provides easier access not only for our Cabarrus County folks, but on the behavioral health side, which will have a regional focus. It provides access for adjoining counties as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Burns.
As we're speaking about the adequate but not excessive, we as a board need to apply everybody that comes before us. I'm sure you understand that when you look at the $20 million appraisal and the $42 million amount, eyebrows are raised. And that's what we're getting in a lot of the emails that are coming in against this. Can you address the specifics of why you think the 42 million is the right price? And I assume it has to do with the location, the availability of the lot next to it to build the other building on it, and the access to public transit and the hospital.
Yes.
In that, if you please address whether or not, if it appraised at 22 million, whatever the number was, would the seller sell you that property for $22 million?
Well, the quick answer to that question is no. The longer answer to that question is that appraisal is based on a income-based approach appraisal.
Somebody that bought it at that would be getting rent off that building. Is
Exactly.
that right? Okay.
Because of the fact that the building is currently I think there are 5 partners that have an ownership interest in that building. They lease it to the company, which they also have an interest in, which makes that lease agreement ineligible for consideration in the appraisal because it's not an arm's length transaction. So that was a factor in the appraisal, that plus the current market for first-class office space is depressed today and was somewhat, it was at that time when that appraisal was done as well. If you, as I have done just a little bit of research on appraisals, because that certainly is not my expertise, there are multiple methods of appraising commercial property. Of course, the other appraisal that we had on it was the replacement cost appraisal. What would it cost us that's what is important to us. How do we provide this space to provide these services and to house these employees? What would that cost us? And of course, you've been given those figures, and the first appraisal was 23.8, and then the replacement cost came back much higher than that. After we had that information, I personally met with the owners of that building and explained to them the process that we had gone through. Explained to them that in order to purchase that property, we would have to have approval from the local government commission. And if we did not get that, we would be unable to go forward with the deal. And explain to them the income approach appraisal, the replacement cost appraisal, and the concerns that had been voiced by this board. And so I said, would you be willing to accept an average between the income-based appraisal and the replacement cost appraisal? Their answer was no, we would not. And of course, then they produced information of their computations of what their capitalization rate was based on their investment, and how they arrived at their sales price. They followed that up.
Burns has a follow-up.
No, after he answers, I just wanted to indicate that I have a follow-up. Sorry to interrupt.
They showed me their figures. This is how we determine what we think this property is worth. And then they proceeded to say, we are located in Cabarrus County, but because of the significant growth that's being experienced here, we think that is going to continue. And if we need to hang on to this property, we're currently occupying the property. It's somewhat underutilized because their number of employees has decreased. But if we need to hang on to this for 5 or 6 more years to get a fair return on our money, we don't mind doing that.
Okay. And did your board, in discussing this and deciding to seek approval of this deal at the level that you sought approval, was it a conscious choice to say, well, we have to pay a little more than we might otherwise because of the location and because of what we need? Was all that discussed among your board members before they voted on this?
When we voted to purchase this building, that was prior to having any sort of appraisal done on the property, because there is no statute that requires that a government have an appraisal done on a piece of property before purchasing it. The appraisal was a result of local government commission requirements. Does that answer your question?
I guess my question is, Chairman, may I follow up one more time or clarify? I just want to understand whether your commission, your board discussed, that price that you've negotiated is a fair and equitable price, given what you need, the location and what needs to be built there. Was that specific price something that they said that's something we should be willing to do?
That has been discussed significantly over some period of time. And the focus, certainly initially, and I think since that time, has been more on how, we have clearly identified a need in the community on several different fronts. And what will it cost us to fill that need? If we do it this way, it's going to cost us $85 to $100 million. If we do it this way, it's going to cost us $62 million. So that has been more what is the most economical way that we can provide these services for the citizens in our county.
I apologize. I learned that there's another county commissioner from Cabarrus County here, Mr. Beaster. Thank you for joining us today. So I just wanted to recognize you. We're hearing from the chairman a lot, but there has been opposition voices in Cabarrus County regarding this. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Ms. Harvey. Not to beat a dead horse, but on the initial appraisal, the 23.8 million appraisal, you mentioned in your discussion with Mr. Burns the use of income approach, but there's language in your Q&A that makes it also seem like there were comparisons. There was a comp approach used as well. Is that the case? And if so, was it a weighted valuation?
That was somewhat of a blended approach in that appraisal. I don't have a copy of it in front of me right now. I certainly have looked at a copy of it. That there were some mention of some comparable buildings in there. There is no other building in Cabarrus County that is comparable. This is a unique to Cabarrus County, this type of building. I think the comps that were in that there were some in South Carolina in a location that I'm not familiar with. I think there may have been some Charlotte buildings included in that. Kelly might be able to better address some of those specifics.
There were some concerns.
I'm sorry, we all know who you are, but
Kelly Sifford.
for the secretary, we need to record it. Thanks.
Kelly Sifford. Some of the comps were, one was for Yanceyville. One was for a small 6,000 square foot building that was wood framed. Many of the comps were Class B buildings. The main building on the campus is a Class A building. The smaller building is a Class B building. So there were some concerns about comps, but that was just, one part of it. Obviously, appraisals, there's many different ways to look at it. And for us, the market income-based approach did not necessarily hit what we were trying to do. So that was.
Ms. Harvey, do you have a follow-up?
I did, just one. Just to clarify, the second valuation that came in higher, was that done by a different appraisal company or the same one you used for the initial one?
It's the same appraisal company did both appraisals.
Thank you. Ms. Hoffman?
Yes, I just want to be sure I understand. If you went out to build the exact building that you need to suit your needs today, you said that would be 150,000 square feet?
Approximately, yes.
And do you have a cost for doing that?
Those were the estimates that we received back, between 85 and 130 million dollars, which was on a property located just off the same road that this property is located on. That was the only available site that we could find, which was not ideal. I will point out another comparison. This board just approved an application for Pender County for a human services building. I think it is for 70,000 square feet with $40 million. The price per square foot would be $576. I think the price per square foot for our proposal is $442 per square foot. If we applied the Pender County price for new construction, then our facility, this existing facility, would come in at $80,640,000. So, as I said before, I mean, we're looking primarily what is an alternative way for us to provide this space, and what would it cost us? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And that's just your construction cost. That's no upfit, what furnishing and all of that after you. So this is just your pure construction cost.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna call on Mr. Philbeck, and then I've got a couple of questions based on things you just said. So, Mr. Philbeck, did you have any hand up?
Yes, sir. So what this all boils down to in my mind is you have an appraisal that what they did have a cost approach depreciated. They did have the income approach with mostly out of county comps, some even out of state. Given the overall market right now, a lot of vacant office space and leases are going up or expiring. People are working at home, and there are going to be a lot of these properties that are going to sell for lower prices than they would have 5 years ago, probably. But it seems to me what all this boils down to is you read the whole thing, the not meeting the adequate, not excessive criteria is based on a bona fide, valid appraisal. Integra is a good outfit. They've done a lot of smaller appraisals in my commercial real estate business through the years, and they're giving an honest opinion. Some other appraiser may come up with 30 million. You never know. I'm just telling you, I've seen them all over the board. But in the minds of the majority, I think it was a 4-to-1 vote. I'm not sure the last time they voted to go ahead with it, knowing all of this. For this board, I think, number one, I think that our staff is saying Cabarrus County doesn't have a problem paying for this, but the appraisal being that low, it doesn't meet the adequate, not excessive. In the minds of the majority of that board, it obviously does, based on what you have heard, meet it. And so it seems to me in the final analysis, the question for us is, knowing they can afford it, that's not the issue. I believe they just recently got a AAA bond rating. They want it because of location. It's ideally located. It costs them less than building new. And if you read through all the stuff we've gotten, and I've read a lot of it, not all of it, I'm sure. I've even scanned both of those appraisals we got in the last few days, pretty good. But it boils down to, do you trust the majority of the existing board there that this is in the best interest of Cabarrus County and they can afford it? And the fact that they're paying more than it's appraised for is something they're willing to do because of the location and the overall perspective. If staff is telling us they can't afford it, that's a different thing. And I get why the staff comes up with the recommendation. Ordinarily, you don't pay $20 million nearly more for something than what an appraisal is, but it does seem like a unique situation. And so it's kind of the horns of a dilemma, it seems to me. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Mr. Philbeck.
May I ask Mr. Philbeck a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Penny. Can I ask these 3 quick questions first, please?
All right.
Thank you, Secretary. You say this is a Class A office building?
Correct.
Okay. You say it's not abandoned. It's pretty abandoned.
It is occupied, heated, cooled. There are people working in it every day. I think originally there may have been as many as 500 employees at that location. Currently, I would say closer to 100 or perhaps a little less.
Probably about
So,
50.
Yeah.
all right. So you're still asserting it's a Class A office building? Okay.
Yes, sir.
When you say you met with the owners, who are the owners by name?
I can't give you all of their, I don't,
Or just one?
Stravinsky, I think was his last name, the one that communicated the information back to me. I can get that exactly for you.
And last one, I'm going to defer to Secretary Penny. What method does your tax assessor, who I presume reports to the board, what method does your tax assessor use when they value commercial buildings in Cabarrus County?
He uses the guidelines that are prescribed by the state of North Carolina for all residential and commercial property evaluation.
What was his value? Happens to be a he. What was his value of this property?
I think that is in that Q&A, but I believe it was 22.
He used the income approach because they do not contemplate it as a government use was what he stated.
So the tax assessor who reports to the board came up with low 20s. The appraisal came up with low 20s. And I know this is in all this information that you've received as a board, but it's important that, especially the representatives and senators that are here, to understand the timeline. On January 12th, Andrew Carter, who's sitting in this room, said we need to have an appraisal that shows the value close to what the county's paying for it. 10 minutes later, I think the tax value would work, especially if it's close to the purchase price. 15 minutes later, it wasn't close to the purchase price. Purchase price was nearly twice as high as the tax value. A day later, looks like we'll need an appraisal if you don't have one. Any recommendations for a commercial property appraisal in a case like this? 3 days later, recommended Integrity Realty Resources. I have confidence this firm will capture today's value of the property, including the buildings and extra land. I'm reading all these sentences because I don't want it to be associated with taking things out of context. 8 minutes later, Cabarrus County is under contract in need of current fair market value appraisal for the property at 1000 Progress Court. A few hours later, we propose valuing the excess land separately from the building associated land, but within one report. Based on the property age, we would typically use the sales comparison and income approaches to value the land. This is from your appraiser. A few hours later, given the internal analysis by Cabarrus County, to consider building new versus buying the property, the cost approach may be the best of value here. 10 days later, I just spoke with John and we may have a deal breaker of a problem. Quote, he's expecting to send the final appraisal over early this week, but he said the valuations are going to be in the low 20s. And I'll turn it over to Secretary Penny, and Alder Holmes also has her hands up, but this is the timeline of actually what has happened regarding this whole issue about appraisal. So, Secretary Penny.
I guess my question of Mr. Philbeck, since I too have questions about these valuations, but I also know that when I did real estate, in terms of as a lawyer, that tax evaluations were often different, particularly when the property is changing purpose. And Mr. Philbeck, you are sort of geographically more attuned to what's going on, professionally more attuned to what's going on. And you boil this down to, do you trust the decision of the board? Let me ask you this. Do you trust this decision? Because I mean, I can see points on both sides on this issue. Not school's a different issue, but on this issue, I can see points on both sides of this one.
And thank you.
You want me to answer that question?
If you'll allow him, Chair.
I think
Sure.
that whatever county or city it is, for the most part, if it's affordable and the opinion of the board there is that it's what's in the best interest of their community, I want to support the local board. I'm an old local government person. But I do get that the valuation from a bona fide MAI appraiser, which an MAI is basically the doctoral degree in appraising, it is a lot of difference. The question is, in my mind, I've struggled with it, and I've read their rationale. And if I were in the position of the majority of that board, I would hope the LGC would go along with it. But I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed we had the motion right out of the gate. I know that's one way to do it, but we normally have all these discussions and then we have a motion. And now we're kind of on the horns of, here's a motion and a second to deny before we even had any discussion this time. And I know under Robert's rules, that's technically the way it's supposed to be. But even earlier today and in every one of our meetings, we normally don't make motions coming out of the gate. That bothers me a little bit, to be honest with everybody. But I tend to want to trust the local board. And I know about location. I get that. I don't live in Cabarrus County. I'm 50 miles from Cabarrus County, roughly.
Closer than me.
But I just, I'm just going to have to make a decision here in a little bit whether to vote for this motion or against it, but it's a tough one. Secretary.
I'll respond to that. You have not heard from the Secretary of the Board about all the work that they have put into these applications, especially the one that's right in front of you, just over the last few months. Yes, ma'am, I've got you. Just hang on just a second. Secondly, that information that I just read into the record was information, as long as we've been working on this application, that we did not have access to. We did not know till a few weeks ago, correct me if I'm wrong, that this even existed. When they fill out an application, there's a thing on here where they certify that appraisers' reports are presented. This is information that they have had. Cabarrus County has had this information for months. So we're going to go to the auditor in just a moment, but Mr. Philbeck, made the motion out of respect of our staff. That's why I came out of the box and made the motion. And you have not heard from staff yet. And I think that this commission should give the staff who's put more time in this transaction than anything I've dealt with as the state treasurer in North Carolina. I think you deserve to give them an opportunity to present their side of this. And people can vote how they want to vote. One final.
Well, respectfully, Mr. Treasurer, they did give their opinion that they didn't think it met that one criteria, but they didn't question the need and they didn't question the ability to pay. They left that up to us, but the motion was already on the table. But I understand what you're saying, and I certainly don't have any disrespect for the staff.
Thank you. Auditor Holmes, and then I'm going to turn it over to Secretary. Auditor Holmes, you have something that you'd like to ask?
I would like to second and agree with Mr. Philbeck's sentiment, and also to go ahead and call the question.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you very well.
I would like to call the question.
Okay. We have a motion to call the question. I would like to give staff an opportunity to say a few things.
If that was the case, it would have been ideal to let staff, weigh in prior to the motion being made. I agree that the motion being out there before the opportunity to hear this information, I think procedurally may be correct, but, may not be the best decision under these circumstances.
Staff.
Thank you, Treasurer. We do, again, as the Treasurer noted, have concerns regarding not only,
Sir,
Yes.
the motion to call a question is a priority motion.
We have a motion from Alter Holmes to call the question. I will call the question. I'm asking this commission, these board members, to give the secretary of this commission an opportunity to provide more data before you actually vote on the motion. So I would ask that you vote against the motion to call the question.
Motion to call a question ends debate.
Yes.
So it would be up or down. Do we want more debate or do we not want more debate? Or discussion, if you want to call it that. May I make a friendly question?
Sure.
Madam Auditor, would you withdraw your motion with the representation that we will continue discussion on this issue?
If staff could be brief in their comments, because my understanding is that from what I heard, that staff weighed in earlier with their positions. So I'm not, I'd love to hear any additional information they have beyond what they shared previously. I'm okay with that. Again, my consternation is regarding putting the motion out there before staff had that opportunity, to share with us so that we can make the decision and not just deny it before engaging in any level of conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for withdrawing that.
thank you, Commission members. I won't revisit too much, and I apologize. I should have mentioned this earlier. Our staff's first recommendation regarding the price being excessive was one of staff concerns. And honestly, in our minds, the other pieces were dominoes to that. The purchase had to occur in order for the renovations to occur, in order for the land to be purchased for the behavioral health center to be built. So our primary focus and our primary recommendation was because of that, the excessive costs, what we determined to be the excessive cost based on that $23 million valuation. Staff also has concerns, though, regarding those other two components of this application. Again, it's one application, but three separate projects. One is the purchase of the buildings and the excess land. One is the renovation costs to that building, and one is the cost for construction of that behavioral health center that would be paired with that $32.5 million state grant to build that. There are still staff concerns, though, regarding the adequacy amount of those second two parts of the application, the renovations to the first building and the construction of the second building. This is a concern you will see also with the second application, again, in knowing and being able to reach that finding of adequate but not excessive, having costs known and defined for the commission to be able to make that finding. And so there are still some concerns from staff that those two other components of the application are potentially not adequate because of unknown costs associated with those projects. And we're happy to provide detail, but again, I apologize for not raising that as a staff concern initially, because again, our focus was on that first sort of domino of those three projects. So.
Right. I would just add, and Anybody else has any other questions or comments, we'll be glad to, we have a motion, a second on the table to accept the LGC staff's recommendation to deny this. I also want to remind folks, as you already know, that it's expected that because of the number of vacancies and others, we're getting ready to deal with the school bond in a minute, there's going to be a change of control at the Board of Education. Change of control at the county commission. There is precedent over 10 years ago, just the next adjoining county, where something was very controversial. And there was a decision by the previous secretary of the LGC before I got here. Finance director spoke about delaying the approval of this until that the commission feels more comfortable in recommending approval after the new board is seated. So this was happening in Rowan County. So, yes. Alder Holmes.
Mr. Chairman, I withdrew my motion with the understanding that after staff made their recommendation that we would go ahead and.
Okay. I'm sorry you're on such a short deadline. So
I am absolutely not. I'm absolutely not. I am a big believer in protocol and Robert's Rules of Order and would like to follow.
Auditor Holmes, before you make that motion, can I say a word about the Rowan County thing he mentioned?
Yes, absolutely.
I know Ms. Marshall and I were on the board then, and I was brand new on the board. That was in 2014. There are some similarities and differences. I was basically initiated by that Rowan County thing, Secretary Marshall. You were already a veteran. But the similarities were that you're going to have, in all likelihood, some change in the makeup of the board with a different philosophical look at some things. In both cases, it was likely to be the same political party in control and people lost in the primaries. There is some difference, and the big difference is we had tons more opposition from Rowan County citizens. My phone rang off the hook. My emails burst open. I got snail mail from a lot of people. I don't know about everybody else, but I've had a limited number of opposition to this from the community and a lot more for it. So there are similarities and differences, but the treasurer raises a point that at one point in time that was done since I've been on this board in the last 10 years. But there are some differences and some similarities, which I hope I've espoused. Thank you very much.
And let me go on record saying that consideration, whether you've done it in the past, I will not be a part of doing it in the future, because that consideration is not in the statute anywhere, nowhere in the statute. Now, what the staff has talked about clearly in the statute, we need to debate that. But the changing politics is not something that we should be involved in one iota. We are going far, far beyond our statutory mandate once we go there.
I brought this to the board's attention because a member of the board brought it to my attention. So
it is still wrong.
Yes. We'll take it up with them.
I'm taking it up with the one that brought it up to this meeting. It is wrong. I do not want that on. I want the record to show my vote will not be impacted in any way by this last discussion. When the rest of y'all get sued, you're fine with it.
The motion is on the floor and properly seconded to take staff's recommendation and to deny the application for the lobs for the ACM building. Any further discussion or further debate? Hearing none. Clerk.
Point of clarification. A vote in favor of the motion would be to deny the application.
Correct. Motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, attachment D is in Delta for Cabarrus County. The motion was Falwell, second Butler. Auditor Holmes.
Nay, I vote against the denial.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Nay. Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Come back to me.
Yes, sir. Mr. Burns?
Nay.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
No.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman? Speak again, please. Is your mic on?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Councilwoman Hoffman. Mr. Philbeck?
No.
Thank you. Secretary Penny?
No.
Thank you. It looks like 3 yes. Is that right? 4, 5, 6 no. That motion fails.
Auditor.
May I make a motion to approve this request?
Motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion approved, been seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. I would like to state a few responses since I have time. And I'll start with Senate Leader Berger announced that the state has a healthy savings account to respond to the storm. So per my calculations of the surplus that we have, there should be no valid justification for the state to revoke or rescind the portion of funds that will be allocated for this particular project. Also, as a former county commissioner, I appreciate that they have factored in things like accountability, transit, and the reality that if they don't pay this amount, then they must pay a higher amount. And I think that is a bottom line for me. In addition to the fact that I think we know with this housing market that homes rarely sell at their assessed tax value. In fact, usually it's much higher than that. And we are still currently in a situation where there are multiple bidding options for many homes across the state. And my last point is regarding trust. Regarding the question as to whether we trust the elected leaders. For me, my trust is not necessarily a factor in my decision making, particularly when staff has said that they have the resources to do it. It's obvious that there's a need, and this particular location is best suited to fulfill those needs. And I think when it comes down to trust, that should be decided at the ballot box, but not be a consideration for the LGC as to who may or may not win in the upcoming election. So that is my rationale for making the motion and voting to approve this.
Okay, we have a motion, a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. Just briefly. I just wanted to state to the staff that I really appreciate your work. I know you've worked very hard on this, and this is by no means a criticism of the work that you have done. So I hope you'll understand it that way. But I do want to note that the appraisal that came in low, and this is, I think, important to me, when I looked at the sale appraisal, the appraisal based on other comparable sales, every one of those buildings was in another county. Some of them were in Raleigh, one was in Wilmington, several were in Charlotte. This county that's before us today cannot use a building that's not in its county. So that to me is important. And as a commissioner, former commissioner, my role on this board, I think, is to at least speak up for the interests of county governments. And at the point where we start to substitute I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it, It is not our job to substitute our political judgment or guess what's going to happen in the next election, or take the word of former political operatives who are now running again and say, that's fine. That can be all reached and worked out in Cabarrus County. Folks face their election. We don't. It's not our job to substitute our political judgment for theirs. If this county can afford it and this county can address it, they can also face their voters on this decision. And so I'm going to vote in favor of this application.
Well,
Treasurer,
and I'm not sure you do either, but
Excuse me?
I said, I'm not sure what you just said, and I'm not sure you are either. I don't know what political part of this. This is an email chain that's entered into the record that shows that they withheld information from this commission for months.
How often do you receive the entire email file of a county commission in considering anything that we've passed in the last 6 months?
Somebody's put in a public records request, and this is the information that was presented.
Understood.
So if you want to enable an email from February, 8 months ago, that says, I spoke with John and we may have a deal breaker or a problem. He's expecting to send the final appraisal over this week, but he said the valuations are going to be in the low 20s.
And that's what was given to us, correct? I mean, that's what we're considering.
Yeah, but.
And so if we think that that appraisal is not.
I have the floor, sir. There's nothing political
Steve,
about
always have the floor. Please go ahead.
No, sir, you put this on the agenda.
Yeah, I know it did, because you were going to bury it on your desk and not let it come to a vote, as you've done before, Mr. Chair.
I am in favor of letting the board and the staff do its work.
Thank you.
No, I'm interested.
so may I say something before we vote? So in the final analysis, from my point of view, way out here in the West, where, by the way, my power has come on while this meeting's been going on at my house. To me, it all boiled down, Mr. Treasurer, and I'm sorry to disappoint you with my vote, but I think I buy that they have really tried hard to find the best location with the most potential for the future, with vacant land to build the behavioral health. And I just think $20 million is a lot of money to pay more than. And I don't even know if I'd have voted for it back in my day of being on a local board, because I'm so darn conservative generally. But I think they've made the case that, all things considered, they're willing to do it this way because it's better for them in the long run by location and cost if they have to go build a new building. So that's where I'm at, and that's just the way I came down.
Thank you, Mr. Philback. I will add before I call the question that in the floor above us, we are the custodian and fiduciaries for about $9 billion worth of real estate. And we have subject matter experts that know a lot about commercial real estate. And I can tell you, based on the bank loans and other factors that are happening across this country, even in fast-growing counties, people are turning the keys in to office buildings and commercial real estate, turning the keys in because the value of the property is less than the mortgage. That is happening. That reality. You can't manage what you can't measure, and that is a absolute fact. So with that, we have a motion. Anybody else like to say anything? Mr. Butler.
He's muted.
Paul, you're muted, but you're muted.
All right. Members of the board, you've heard me say before, and I'll say it again, we are the last wall. Did you hear what the last wall to good government, sound financial decision. I've been in this business 50 some years and have had the highest regards for the local government commission. I used to sit on Harlan Bowles' knee. And I think we need to realize or look at we don't want the integrity of this commission. You know, we were assigned when this water money came along. If y'all can remember my comments about they wanted us to sign off on these water projects even before the water resource people. And I just don't want, or I would hate to see the integrity, the history that this commission has had in keeping North Carolina on a sound financial basis, the reputation we've had, that we become like it's a rubber stamp, or there's nothing. There's a project before that before I came on board that people told me, said there ain't going to be any problem with the local government commission. We just push it right on through. And so that's the reason I have respect for the staff and the cost of it. I mean, and I will tell you something that long ago when I was a county manager, that form follows function, not function is shoved into form. And they taught that at the School of Government and the county manager's course for years and years. Form follows function, not function shoved into a form. And we do that a lot today. I've seen it, but that's the reason why I second the motion, and I'm going to vote for it. All I have to say, Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Butler, the motion that's before us is to approve the purchase of the building. Ms. Hoffman?
Well, I don't know.
Yes, yes, I just wanted to say, Mr. Treasurer, that, I had to look at this as if we had a similar situation in the city of Greensboro. And I know that if we did, I could never have voted for or supported this issue, paying twice the appraised value of a property. I just, it's not something that I would ever have supported. So I'm really just looking at it on that basis.
Thank you. Further discussion, further debate? The motion on the floor is by Auditor Holmes, seconded by Mr. Burns, to approve this application, which was not recommended by the commission, the staff. Clerk will call the roll.
That's limited obligation bonds, the 85 million. Attachment D is in Delta. Holmes, Burns, as you said. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Oh.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
No.
I believe that will be 6 yes, 3 no, so that motion carries.
Next item.
Next item is the second application from Cabarrus County, $155 million. Approximately 30 million is for the library that had started as a lease 2 years ago, and the remaining 125 million is for construction, additions, renovations, HVAC and roof replacements at various schools.
Staff's recommendation.
Not recommended.
We have some comment about that, so.
Again, just to clarify, staff is not objecting or does not disagree with the need for the schools or the projects that are being proposed. However, this application, it's called LOBs, limited obligation bonds, but what it really represents is 12 specific discrete projects, each to be financed. If you look at, again, the findings of adequate but not excessive, staff is looking and reviewing each of those projects to see if they meet that finding. We have found in our review that we do not have essentially a complete information, sufficient information for us to make that recommendation. We're recommending not approval because these projects are not ready do not have the appropriate substantiation of their costs. There are 12 projects in the application that was presented to us on August 30th. Of those 12 projects, we had one guaranteed maximum price contract for one project. We had bid information or agreements for 4 projects and no bid documentation or any other substantiation of cost for the other 7 projects. We have been working with the county since that time. This is our back and forth over the course of weeks trying to get more information. So we've been actively working with the county on getting information up and through to yesterday, I believe. But we do not have information, again, that a finding can be made of adequate and not excessive because we do not have documentation substantiating the costs of these projects. And again, the findings under 159, 151B, I believe it's 3, is that the amounts to be financed are adequate and not excessive.
Okay. Members, you have a extensive package on this. As Secretary just mentioned, we're not opposed to public school construction, but if you look at the application, which I guess been here since before I was here, this is the application that people have to fill out. This is the spreadsheet that talks about how many things were actually completed on this application regarding this borrowing. There's very little that's been complete regarding the specificity or the price of these projects.
And again, Treasurer, obviously, we're happy to continue working with the county to get to a point where we have adequate documentation and substantiation of those costs. But we cannot make this recommendation at this time because there are 2 projects of the 12 that we believe we have adequate documentation.
So, and those 2 are?
The Fred L. Wilson Elementary School addition and the HVAC replacement at the South Campus of the community college.
But in the staff's opinion, the rest of the things that they were supposed to fill out is incomplete.
Can we hear from Cabarrus County on this?
Sure.
I think we've got some subject matter experts here with us today. We have folks from the school system, Mr. Louder and Mr. Cohn, that have been involved in securing these bids and so forth. And I think our finance director has been involved in the filing of this application. So if Ryan, if you would come forward and mention the contracts on those projects, let's say in the applicant, and Jim.
Well, and as they come up, would you agree with what the secretary said about the lack of filling in the blanks as it relates to?
This is something that I do not have knowledge of. The information that's been provided to me is that these projects, the initial list of projects that we had to come before this board was much larger than this. At the time that we received guidance from the staff that there would be no more draw programs, or they did not want us to apply for a draw program, then we pared that list down only to the projects that we had sufficient documentation for, which are all of these projects. I'll turn the floor over to you, gentlemen, to expand on that.
Mr. Treasurer?
Yeah.
Point of personal privilege.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. So much of this stuff that has come and tried to do diligence reading it. I was just speaking to Debbie. I mean, I thought it was 140 and it's 155 and you're holding up something. I'm not sure. Did we all get? I just don't know.
I don't have that. I asked for this just to go ahead.
To clarify, this was a sheet that I, for my own purposes, and being able to reach our conclusion that I documented for myself and what was missing and what was not. The amount was just,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
no, the amount was, I think, a misunderstanding or miscommunication on the application, the completion of the application. We've clarified what that was. It was just a matter of the amounts that were entered on the application and what amount they were seeking for approval versus what amount they were anticipating receiving through bond premium. So we've worked through that with Mr. Howden and with the financial advisors. And so it wasn't that the project cost, that 140 to 155 is not a representation that the project costs have increased. It was just a matter of how the not to exceed amount that we were listing was presented. And I don't know if that helps or made things more confusing, but the number did not change as a result of the request changing. It was just for lack of a better explanation, a technical issue with how the application was completed.
So there's 12 projects on the application that is before us.
If we want to go through each one?
Yeah.
So the new elementary school, there was a GMP that was submitted. Do you all have
As a preliminary GMP dated on September 16th, yes. But that was a preliminary GMP, correct?
Yeah. No, that's more of a technical for GMP.
Sorry, a GMP.
No, I know GMP, but preliminary.
GMP is, sorry, a guaranteed maximum price. It's essentially a contract, a contract price. So
I'm just,
sorry.
Sorry, what?
Mr. Burns has his hand up.
I'm just trying to locate the list of specific projects.
No, we're going through them right now. I just got
Do
this.
we have that? The attachment E is not included, so I'm just asking whether that was provided and I'm just incapable of opening the right email.
No, I have the write-up included. It just said various projects and quite honestly, we should have listed those individually on the sheet.
Okay.
Mr. Howden, I believe, will go through them and we'll, again, generally there are, not always, but generally there aren't so many projects in a single application. So I think staff just sort of with them, but it's a fair point. And again, we'll make sure that in the future.
Oh, I wasn't trying to make a point. I was just trying to see if I was not opening the
No,
right thing.
it's a good observation and staff will make sure we're more specific, but there were 12 projects and.
So the first one, do you have a guaranteed maximum price, which my estimation, courthouse was not guaranteed or maximum. All right, but I know that, but did you have a guaranteed maximum price in writing or is it just a budget?
So I'm Brian Cohn. I'm the Director of Construction for Cabarrus County Schools. And what we do have is a preliminary guarantee maximum price. When we were made aware that the process for how we go about securing financing for these schools may be transitioning from what we had historically been used to, we were asked to come up with a contract method that we could get approved by our board, the Board of Education, that would guarantee let's just say worst case scenario for what that project looks like. That's kind of out of what we historically had done. We were unclear on what the next steps would be. So we reached out to our construction manager at risk firms that we were working with at the time. Two of those firms had done extensive work with the state construction office, and the state construction office has a policy in place that allows you to do a preliminary guarantee maximum price. What that does is the guarantee maximum price, or if you don't mind, PGMP, is established at the point at which you have the drawings completed at, which most of our projects, 3 of these school projects were at design development phase drawings. So our firms went in and they priced these drawings based on that design development phase. They consulted with their first tier subcontractors that they work with, and they established for us a pre-GMP price that is a worst case scenario based on the documents we had to date. Now, what the Board of Education approved was the pre-GMP it's not the final price. It will change. And the hopes are, and what we've seen already in a couple of our bid packages that we are working through, that those are worst case numbers and they're going to come down. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the number we've presented, that's the worst case. That's the money that we will be allotted and we will issue for this contract, or it'll be less than that.
And if you're wrong?
It'll be less than that. Then it will be savings to the county based on what the financing is.
But in the case of other transactions in Cabarrus County, which you're not here to talk about, if you're wrong, who has to pay the overage? If you are wrong, who has to pay the overage?
With respect, my job is to make sure that I adhere to the contract that I've done, and I'm going to make sure that happens. And we go back to the table. Okay, so yes, let's say if it comes in over, then we go back to the table with our contractors and we begin value engineering the individual scopes of work to where we get to within that allotted fund.
Right. But you, right, we'll save that question. I will not. I know what folks like you, I know the responsibility you have in Forsyth County. When I was on the school board, we built under budget within schedule. So we have a good reputation for that. So I will not ask you any more questions about that. So what is that number for this school?
So the current pre-GMP or PGM price for the school that we are discussing right now for just the construction and site development is $44,305,083.
Okay.
And I do think it's worth noting that we just opened our structural steel packages last week because we're trying to get some early packages released because of the delays that we see in the industry. And that steel package came in close to $900,000 below what was a part of the pre-GMP price. That's close to 26% below what our pre-GMP included. We had a generator equipment package that came in 24% below what was included as a part of the pre-GMP package. So again, it gives indication that as these scopes of work or bid packages are formally bid out per the statute, they will come in less.
So going back to you, sorry.
Yes, sir.
You have a guaranteed maximum price as you've had on other construction contracts in Cabarrus County. The application is before us.
Yes, sir.
Who pays?
If for some reason we go beyond that price.
Yes. Right.
Yes, sir.
So in some instances, it's not a guarantee or a maximum in some instances.
Yeah, you could say that with every contract you do that. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
And I think it's worth knowing this would be our third construction manager at risk delivery method in Cabarrus County schools. We're in a market that is incredibly busy. The supply of subcontractors and trades are at high demands. It has been beneficial over the last two projects and going into this one to go with that delivery method. It's worth noting that those previous two jobs, we gave money back to the county as a part of those contracts because they came in under what the GMP price was established at.
Next one.
Treasurer, may I clarify? I just wanted to clarify. I know you mentioned the contract amount, but in the originally when the application was submitted, we had no costs associated with the project. So on the second round, we got some costs, and it looks like the total cost that associated with that project is just over 50 million.
50.6 million. That includes all the additional soft costs as part of the project. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The library.
You want to say you had a question?
Sorry. Secretary Marshall.
Somebody's waving his hand.
Oh, Secretary.
Yes, Secretary.
Yeah. Let me go back and try to understand the pre-GMP process here. Are you saying that it is possible for these for this construction cost to exceed the amount in the pre-GMP?
The short answer, yes, it would be possible. But if that is the case, then we would go back to the table with our project team and we would begin looking at bid packages that, one, were either beyond the limits of the originally established GMP or pre-GMP. And we would value engineer those projects to where we got to where within the funded amount or the budgeted amount, maybe it's a better way to explain it.
So it isn't, so you answered my question incorrectly then. It isn't possible because you're never going to have a meeting of the mind until you bring the price within the pre-GMP amount. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry.
So the pre-GMP is in fact a maximum.
Yes, sir.
It's not a guarantee, but it's a maximum.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I would say, can we skip the library and just stick with the schools for now, since the school gentlemen are here?
Well, the library is as funky as the rest of it is, so briefly. The building, it's not a building,
So, okay,
it's a lease. You're the,
so
tell me your name again.
Jim, Howard.
Okay. So you know about both.
Yeah, so it is a building. It's a, you call it a P3 agreement that this board approved back in June of 2022. So it is being constructed with a third party. It is being built, and there is a lease component to it. Yes, that we also want to pay off the construction of it and also pay out the lease so we own it.
Okay, what changed in 2 years before the building's even occupied that would had a partner and now you don't want a partner anymore? Tell me.
No, the intention was always to buy out the lease and own the building outright.
All right, go ahead.
Treasurer, there is a thing potentially there. I wasn't aware of that, but I'm not sure that a financing can be used to pay off operating costs of a lease. We'd have to look into that again. What we have for that funding request is the old lease from 2022, and then some information provided in an email, but we have no contracts for the work, no bids for the work. Is that correct? So there's no substantiation of the costs there, and also the outstanding concern about whether or not that lease can, is that a concern?
That is concerned. We understood at the time of the P3 2 years ago that it was the intention of the county to eventually purchase the building, but purchase it outright, not finance.
But that's what we're doing, is purchasing outright.
This is a financing.
Oh, you want us to purchase outright without getting a loan for it?
And there is, just much like the previous building purchase, that the law steps in if the county were to buy something with cash. Obviously it doesn't come before the commission for approval. It's when it's financing something that then the commission has to consider it, and the findings of the statutes have to be made. So there's that distinction there. So. But again, with that second project, the public library, we have no substantiation of the cost as far as contracts. Again, and I know reference has been made to a lot of other things that have been approved, Treasurer. And I know in some of, on the agenda write-ups that you have under the adequate, not excessive, you'll see frequently that staff notes that the costs are known and defined. That's really what we're looking for when we bring these to the commission, or when we work with the units of local government, when they're seeking approval of financing, are costs known and defined, so that that finding of adequate and not excessive can be made. And so one of the concerns we have throughout these projects is that we don't have sufficient documentation substantiating these costs to know what the true cost is going to be, so that the appropriate amount can be financed and approved by the commission. So.
Did you have an answer about the cost?
Yeah, the cost is within the lease. There's addendums in there that just talks about the total cost that the county will pay for the construction and for the upfit of this library.
That is.
Within the lease, it is $12,350,000. There was also an addendum to that there was $5.2 million that was going to be a dish that the county's going to pay themselves. We did work with the P3. We paid this outright, and then the lease buyout itself is $10.3 million.
I'm just. Why is part of the money that the county is going to pay itself part of a financing application?
Not pay itself, so this is a partnership, an agreement with
Who are the partners?
CK Children's Fund.
Okay.
Is our partner. So we split the cost throughout the whole project. There was some additional work that needed to be done that the county agreed we would pay 100% of it. We did not split that, and that's that $5.2 million I talked about.
Can't do anything about it now, but if you had to do it all over again, would you done it this way?
Expedited it.
But it's not built.
It's almost done. It'll be open probably December.
Oh, yeah, it's
Okay.
it's complete.
Fred Wilson, GMP.
That one you were okay with? Mary Frances Wall renovations, GMP.
Preliminary.
All right, preliminary GMP. So that's been provided. Very similar process to what we were speaking to on the new elementary school, just a smaller scale. These are reputable construction manager risk firms, New Atlantic, Rogers Builders that we're working with. Lyle's Construction is a local firm for the Mary Frances Wall project. Again, all have strong reputations in the community, some in the region, and we have the utmost confidence in the preliminary GMP pricing that we got approved by our Board of Education for the elementary school, the Mary Frances Wall, as well as the opportunities.
I'm not sure where to go, so you drive.
Preliminary GMPs for both of those schools, I believe. And our preliminary GMPs typically what staff requests? Final GMPs. Okay, and I just want to be clear, Treasurer, that we're not asking for anything in this more than we do in other. This really is just our process. It's not Cabarrus County. We've worked with them for months. We've met with them. We talked to them. We've continued to try to work with them. So we're not. This is really just following our process and nothing more. So again, we've met with Mr. Howden, with the county manager and others. So we've been trying to work them through this process, and I want to make it clear we're not looking for things that we don't look for with any other application. So it's just about the process.
So Concord High School should have a contract.
We have, I believe, an intent of agreement. That's an intent to enter into a contract. So no, again, looking for no known costs.
Well, again, my name is Jim Maurer, I'm Executive Director of Planning Discussion for Cabarrus County Schools. Intent means that we cannot award a contract until we have been funded by Cabarrus County. The board took the bid, received the bids, accepted them with the intent to execute once the funding has been received by Cabarrus County. We cannot award a contract without funding in place by Cabarrus County. That's why it's called intent.
And the same goes for the pre-GMPs. Continue. So Forest Park Elementary School HVAC replacement. This one, we have a contract with an engineer and they're going out for bids, but we do not have a contract for this one. But it was a critical project that we felt that needs to get in this funding if we could do so. Huntington Hills Elementary HVAC, there's a contract.
That's in the same letter. I'll circle back to that one. The Forest Park Elementary School was an engineering services contract. Was that the full scope of the work? That was not a contract for the full scope of the work. So that contract was just for the engineering service?
That is correct. They're helping them get the bids to replace the HVAC unit at that school.
So, but this was the Forest Park age. The county adopted a reimbursement resolution of up to $7 million. And this represents $587,000. So there are more costs that you anticipate?
Yes, the replacement of the HVAC itself would cost roughly $6.5 million.
And
what we are estimating.
Right. So on your project sheet, you're indicating your request here is $7 million as part of the $155 million.
That is correct.
So you have a contract for $587,000 of the $7 million.
That is
But
correct.
there's no contract substantiating
Not for, that is correct.
the remainder of that. So again, that's, I think, what the point that we're speaking to, that amount is not known. Through formal documentation, that amount is not known. You know, $587,000 of $7 million that you're requesting that the commission members approve for you. Okay? So that's where we believe the documentation on that one is missing.
Do you think this application's cured? I mean, is it cured in terms of what the requirements are, with the information that we need, the input that we've given you about what is necessary?
Well, I sure thought so. I mean, we were updating the application up until Thursday of last week, adjusting it and making changes as requested by the staff.
But when you ask us to finance millions of dollars and you only have a contract for the engineering part of that for $500,000, how is that complete?
It's an anticipation. Where it's an HVAC unit that needs to be replaced. We're looking out for these kids, making sure they have heating and air, and we put it in the application to be funded.
And that's not in dispute. What's in dispute is the incompleteness of all this. So go ahead.
10. Were you at 10? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Butler.
Treasurer, I hope I'm not embarrassing myself, but I may be. Is there anything other we've got received on this beside attachment E? The agenda package.
That's, yes, sir.
Is that yes, sir, there is, or yes, sir, there's not?
No, Mr. Butler, again, apologies from staff. We did not list out the 12 projects. Mr. Howden is walking through each of them right now, each of the 12 projects.
So, and maybe the other board members, but so I'm sitting here with 4 pieces of paper. The top one's attachment E, Cabarrus County agenda item, $140 million, limited obligation bonds, schools, and various projects. Is this all the information we've received?
Yes, sir. And again, Mr. Butler, and again, apologies for not listing the projects on the sheet, but again, our standard process isn't to provide all this excess information to you in the write-ups, but we definitely should have listed the 12 projects, but the additional information that's being presented is at the request of members to provide it, so.
Well,
I'm gonna call,
like a lot of information on this particular issue.
we're going to finish out, then we're going to call on a couple of staff members, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
All right.
Yeah, Hickory Ridge roof replacement, bid awards that have been approved by the school board.
Amount.
$1,448,568.
That one was Hickory Ridge.
Hickory Ridge.
Got a flat roof.
So again, the reimbursement resolution was for $2.55 million. I think we have a bid tab and a bid form, I believe, on that one.
And the new form would be $800,000. This is what we.
I know, I'm sorry, we just have a bid tab with Hickory Ridge, not a bid form. So we have the bid tab. So, correct. We only have the bid tab, which obviously indicates the lowest bidder, I would assume. help me out here. So it indicates the lowest bidder. It doesn't indicate that a contract has been entered into or that cost is, that an agreement has been reached. True? Or are we, is that?
That project has been presented to the Board of Education. They have approved that project to the lowest responsible bidder. Again, pending funding for Cabarrus County. Pending funding for this.
But the difference in the reimbursement and
Speak up, please.
the difference in the reimbursement amounts on most of these projects and the amount that the county has provided us for these projects, there's a difference. And so there is either as the school representative has said, going to be an excess amount or not adequate amount. So that is what we are looking for on the numbers that they have provided. So if it's not definite, then that it's basically, as Mr. Howden said, an estimate.
And I think to Jennifer's point, back to the preliminary GMPs, we appreciate that it won't be more than that, but then that factors into is the amount being approved excessive. So although I appreciate that that cap is in place, obviously, that you can't potentially pay more. There's the question then of excessive. So and I think number 11 and 12
are the same.
bid forms and bid tabs. Yep. Those amounts are
$859,835 and $1,127,500.
And again, the question, if those are full projects, considering the reimbursement resolutions of $2.5 and $2 million, whether those are complete project costs.
Those are complete. Yeah, that is correct. The resolutions were done ahead of time. We were trying to estimate these costs, get those resolutions in.
All right. Those are the 12 projects. Call on one of our staffers, Biff, just to say a few words. You stand up, identify yourself, please.
I'm Biff McGilvery. I'm a temporary employee. And I've done this before. I have some experience in it. It says very succinctly on the application that you need to have all of the projects permitted. I looked through this myself. I saw no evidence of any permits, no letters from the architect, none of that. Do such things exist? Have you permitted them? The other item is that normal or quite often generally accepted construction protocol, particularly with something like this, where you use GMPs, there's generally an independent estimator involved that goes along with the contractor and reviews the estimation processes and all of that to make sure that the prices are relatively in line. Were any of those used? And my other item would be, when you go out with the GMP and if you have a significant savings, quote unquote, between the amount they proposed in any of the GMP and the actual cost, there's a savings between, the savings is split quite often between the construction manager and the owner, which means generally if there's a savings and it is split, the owner's paid too much. I think I saw this where it's 75-25, the contractor or the manager gets 25% of the savings. So are you telling me on an $800,000 steel savings on one of your schools, just because he walked into it like that and saved himself by overbidding, will he be entitled to $200,000?
Thank you. Can you address, without getting to a back and forth, can you address those three things, please?
Sure. So the permits, so we're not allowed to, one, documents aren't at a phase that we can procure building permits, which I'm assuming that's the permits he's referring to.
Just a second, that's also reviewed by the Office of State Fire Marshal.
It is. It's by NCDPI, DOI, State Fire Marshal's Office.
Correct.
Those have been submitted to those agencies for their design development approval because you do it at all phases of design. We have not received those back yet, but the first elementary school is a prototype that has already been approved by DPI and DOI. So we feel certain that that will be approved. As far as building permits go, we're not, again, we can't enter into an agreement to secure building permits without funding in place for a project. As far as the independent estimate review, so as a part of this construction manager risk delivery process, you're engaged in a pre-construction department in identifying what these costs are as you go through the different design phases, the schematic design phase, the design development phase, and then on into the construction document phase. That's a part of your agreement with your CM risk firms, is they're going through this process, and that's why we engage them.
Is he independent? I'm sorry.
No, they're part of the construction manager at risk firm. Right. And then the third was
the steel. Splitting the.
Oh, the split. So the savings on from the pre-MG, because it's a pre-GMP and it's not an amendment to the agreement. The amendment is what defines the value of the contract. That's what the guarantee maximum price amendment will provide you. Savings that are captured within that final amendment as a part of that contract do go on a split savings at 75-25, yes. Savings from the pre-GMP to where we get to an actual GMP, those are not split. Those come directly back off the cost of the total project.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so,
Wait.
yes, ma'am.
75-25, which way? I know.
So owner gets 75%, the CM gets 25%.
We've gone through the projects. I think the board already knows how they intend to vote. I'll take any questions, Mrs. Hoffman, you may have, and staff's recommendation is that this application is not completely cured. The amount of money we're talking about, and Ms. Hoffman, you have the floor.
And just, I have a closed session, council session at 4 o'clock, but if we're moving to vote, I'll stay another couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do I hear a motion?
Would you mind if I let our superintendent speak, sir?
Well, we're getting ready to lose a member, and that's.
I'll be quick. Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. Just very quickly to the committee, I respect and understand the work you're doing, but I want to understand how important this issue is to the Cabarrus County School System. As of today, we have 35,233 students. We've grown by 163 students since last year, close of last year. We currently have 5,395 active buildings being built, single homes, condos, townhouses, so to speak, which in the next 3 years is going to result in roughly 2,600 new students coming into our county. We've spent the last year and a half on an extensive realignment project that we realigned the entire district. I have roughly 7 to 8 schools right now over 100% capacity. We have a long-term building project plan, which begins with this particular school that's in front of you today, an elementary school that is a consolidated school. We closed 2 schools to build this school in a zone of our area that's not growing, but still needs a school. That school is going to house 756 students. And the point I'm trying to make to you is we've taken in all kinds of data, all kinds of examples. I could stay here all day long and explain to you the growth problems that we're experiencing. But we are desperate for capacity and for this school to be built. Delaying this off any further to a next meeting or months down the road is going to cost us money. It's going to hurt our kids in the district, and it's going to delay a project that we anticipate will take 2 years to build. So this school is desperately needed in our county, and the anticipation here, well, I understand all the questions you're asking. I just must implore you to approve the school project that is in front of you today, because our kids need that, deserve that school to be built in our county. Without that school, I'm going to have to cap enrollment in my school district and shift kids out of their geographic zone. And that's just the beginning of one of the problems. I'll end there. If you have any questions, I'll happily answer them. But our growth issue is tremendous in the county and the needs for this school. This is only one school we're asking for today. In the next few years, we will be back in front of this commission asking for approval of other schools that we're going to do as well. In our realignment scenario, there were several elementary schools that proposed to be built, at least 3 or 4, refurbishing of 2 or 3 high schools, and the potential to possibly build a brand new high school down the road within 10 years. So this is the need and the drastic situation that we're in because of the growth. We continue to grow and grow and grow, and we continue to need capacity. We can't address it with mobile units because we're out of space. They're expensive, they're not safe. It's not what parents want kids to go into. And again, we really truly need this school to be approved. And again, I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I want to emphasize to you how desperate we are to have this approved and continue this going on today, because if you delay it, all these numbers you're talking about are going to go up. And our kids are still going to be in the situation that's in. It's going to cause a lot of problems. They're going to be exasperated throughout the county school system. So I thank you for your time.
Just quickly, in a previous meeting, a question was asked, is your public school enrollment flat or going up?
Our enrollment is
the last 5 years.
slowly increased. It's increased over the last 5 years. I'll give you ADM numbers for the last 6 years. 17-18, we're at 32,499. 2018-19, we're at 33,008. 2019-20, we're at 33,590. We had a dip in 2021 because of COVID.
Sure.
Just 32,668. 21-22, we're at 33,454. 22-23, 34,609. 23-24, we're at 34,927. As of today, we're at 35,266 students. As I said, up 163 from the end of last year and continue to grow. And I want to remind you, I said 5,395 single-family townhouse multiple units that is going to result in roughly 2,600 new students. I pulled 7% out of that total number to account for the amount of charter school kids that we have in our county. We have about 6.6% of our population attend charter schools. Ironically, that number has dropped down almost a full percentage point this year. We're finding kids are coming back to Cabarrus County because of the excellent education that they're getting, and it's increasing our growth even more. So we've even taken into consideration the kids that aren't in our system to make sure that we're getting our numbers right and being accurate about it. But the growth is continuing to happen, and the growth and the numbers are showing that in every aspect that we look at. I have tons of data I'd love to share with you if you need it, but I'm just imploring you to put this school off. It's going to be detrimental to our school system. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Staff's recommendation is to not approve this application, but I'll entertain
I
any
do have
motion.
a question. I'm just terribly confused. 12 projects, and I appreciate what the superintendent's telling us. He's talking about one school.
That's the way it's presented.
Ma'am, with respect, the other projects, I think there are 1 or 2 in there that also are addressing the Kannapolis City School System, which neighbors us, which is the city school system. Those HVAC units, some of the roofing projects, the various things that are in there, they're desperately needed. We have over $400 million of deferred maintenance in our school system right now across 44 schools. Some of that money, all of those projects in front of you are part of our deferred maintenance packages. We're addressing things on priority needs as they need right now. It was pointed out before, those HVAC systems are crucial to the air conditioning and heating units that go on in our system. So they're not, I understand what you're saying, but they're not wish list things. They're desperately needed for our school system. Wellington Hills houses 1,000 kids. That's one of the HVAC systems in there. And again, these are projects that we put in front of our board every year, and they approve it. Goes to the county, they come here, you approve them. All of these projects are needed and necessary to continue to address the issues that are in our school system. It's akin to owning a home.
Doctor, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure, just let me finish real quick. If your boiler breaks, you have to fix it. If your heating system breaks, you have to fix it. If your roof goes bad, you have to put a new roof on it every time. There's maintenance that takes care of a home. It's no different than a school. These deferred maintenance projects are necessary for us to continue to have school in a safe environment for our kids.
And I'm sure it's happened before, but in my experience is most folks don't finance heating and cooling. So go ahead.
First of all,
With all due respect, you do finance your heating and cooling system at home. So you have to finance the heating and cooling systems in your schools. You're in North Carolina, you know how hot it can get. Yeah. So I mean, it's not something that we might. It's a need, not a want. We need to have that.
Secretary has the floor.
Thank you. And actually, that's my follow-up point exactly. We are not at all disputing the need for Secretary Marshall to clarify. There was one new school. There's one addition to a school. Mr. Howden, number.
Mary Frances Wall is the school, the addition is the opportunity school.
Yep.
There are
And then
three
there
projects
are a number of HVAC and roof projects. But again, we are not at all disputing the need for these projects due to growth, due to deferred maintenance, any of that. What our charge is here as staff is to review the application, determine that it's complete from a financing perspective, and make a conclusion as to whether or not we can recommend to commission members that the application is complete and has known and defined costs so that that adequate excessive finding can be made so the commission can make a conclusion. Again, we are not, I want to be clear, we are not disputing at all the need. We are simply looking at the financing and the process for that financing. That's all. So
I respect your position greatly in what you're doing in your work, and I'm not even going to pretend to assume that the work detail you go into. But I can tell you this, 100%. We've asked a lot of hypotheticals here this afternoon. What if this? What if that? If you don't approve these projects, we will be back in front of you asking for more money because it's going to cost us more money to do these projects. I understand what you're saying, what you're saying, but the fact of the matter is, we can get you any of the documentation you'd like. And I think that a lot of the questions you asked today were fully answered and done well. And the people behind me have years and years of experience doing this, and I respect them. And they all come in under budget. They all come in with the best prices, and they follow the rules and the laws. We're talking about the bottom line here. We can talk all day. We're talking about kids. We have to advocate for our kids and do what's best for our kids. I get the dollar amounts. But I think we're nickel and diming and talking about things that we really shouldn't talk about. These are for kids. We are desperate, man, for these schools, these projects to take place. And to not do it, we're foolhardy kidding ourselves to think it's going to cost us more money down the road, because it will. We're back in front of you in 3 months. These numbers go up. So I respect and value immensely the work you do. I don't assume to even pretend to understand the depth of knowledge you have and what you've gone through. But I can tell you from an educator standpoint, this is about the kids. We need to make sure we're taking care of our kids. How long I'm advocating. Thank you for your time.
How long have you been superintendent?
I've been in education for over 32 years. I've been superintendent my 4th year in Cabarrus County. I've been doing this for over 15 years, superintendent. We built a lot of schools, and you know that. I heard you reference earlier as a school board member.
Yeah.
I believe you said that's your history, so you know full well what the value of all this is, and I'm sure you've had many of these hard decisions come before you, sir.
It's ironic to me that this board approved a $20 million general obligation bond. The voters approved a $20 million general obligation bond. The county never issued the bonds. Part of that was going to public schools. So thank you.
So with all respect, that's out of my wheelhouse.
I'm not asking for a response.
Out of my wheelhouse. I'm just asking to do what I believe is the right thing to approve these issues today. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Does the fact that in your analysis and your decision or your recommendation, does the fact that the county is seeking LOBs instead of GOs affect your recommendation at all?
no, it's coming down to, again, in the application, as Biff noted too, the list of items that we're looking for and whether it's met and whether those things are met. So I believe the application's slightly different form, but it's asking for the same things, whether it would be LOBs or GO. So and again, we've never directed Cabarrus County to use GOs for this at all. We've just, we're working with them with the application they have. So, yeah. And again, we're happy to continue working with them with this application and the documentation.
Yes, ma'am. Alder Holmes.
Mr. Chairman, there was one point where you and the gentleman were speaking at the same time. And so I heard your question, but I did not hear his response. Can we give him an opportunity to respond to your last statement?
Well, he did give a response. Do you want to hear from him?
Yes, please. I apologize. I was unable to hear it.
The last question was about bonds that were approved for public school construction by this commission and the voters of Cabarrus County that were never issued. And you said?
Sir, what I said is that's out of my wheelhouse. I'm not sure what you're even referencing. I'm only talking about today's project and what is in front of this commission today to approve, and asking you to, on behalf of the Cabarrus County School System, our kids, to approve these projects because they're desperately needed for our kids to make sure that we maintain a safe environment for all of our kids. And then we address our capacity and growth issues. Thank you. Thank you.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the application being incomplete, have they since provided the information needed, or what exactly are they missing that led to that recommendation?
Auditor Holmes, so the application came in on August 30th. We've been working with the county since that time. There's been literally hundreds of emails. We've had countless meetings internally to discuss, because remember, again, at the time too, on August 6th, the LGC approved the $186 million law draw the ban takeout. So staff was still working with the county on that application. On August 6th, they submitted the application for the $85 million that you just voted on. And on August 30th, they submitted the application for the $155 million in bonds. So staff has been in the last, quite honestly, 30 days to 45 days or so, quite honestly, consumed with these applications. And I mean, this is the back and forth we've had. I have, it's been a long process. We continue to work with them up until, again, I think it was yesterday. Even though we had to finalize the materials to present to you last week, we continued engaging with the county and continuing to ask questions because, again, we're happy to continue working with the county to get to the point where staff felt that all information was provided and we could make that recommendation. So we have not stopped working with the county or stopped working on that review, even though we had to get those materials out the door to you. So I don't know if that answers your question wholly. I'm happy to answer it if not.
Is there anything specific that they have not provided at this point?
So the signed contracts that were for the final instead of preliminary information that we normally ask for on the application. And those conversations, as Secretary Tomasco had mentioned, most others, if not, all other applications all of that information is provided at the time the application is submitted. So that would have been on August 30th. However, because of the motion that was made in the last commission meeting, that would also be on the agenda. That's why we were, after the fact of the application deadline, working with the county to try to get that information back and forth to us.
Do you have a list of the projects that y'all think that are cured and ready to go?
The Fred Wilson was the $13,548,616. The HVAC replacement at the South Campus, $5,334,900. So approximately 19, just under 19.
And then the two roof replacements.
The two roof replacements. What I'm calling 11 and 12, Cox and Wolf Meadow. So Coxwell and Wolf Meadow would have been about another $2 million, 13, 15 in the ballpark of $20 million.
Yes, ma'am.
I continue to admit my confusion in this meeting more so than ever. I mean, if these people, these representatives from Cabarrus County say they can't have the contract until the funding has been approved, and you're also saying that you get signed contracts with all the other ones, what would be the reason that they're inconsistent?
So it would be the contract that if the funds are available, the other limited obligation bonds that come in that are looking for a reimbursement resolution, most of the time the county has fronted the cash to them, not finance the entire thing. So the financing then reimburses the county for the funds that they've already expended. But with this, since they're mostly estimates, it is another indication that it is more of an open-ended kind of explanation on the band program instead of having true, these are the costs we've already expended. This is what we're looking for as a reimbursement because we've spent them. And these are the ones that are either ready to go or are in process. There have been some examples where a small percentage are getting ready to be let, and they have indicated that there would be, that is all the financing that would ever take place on those projects in the past. So if it was $5 million and it came in at $5.1 million, that would not, that 100,000 would not be financed, it would be paid with cash.
In a fast-growing county, trying, as apparently this is, as trying to keep up with the needs, is it policy that you're telling me, or is it statute that all the others have been advance paid and then be reimbursed?
It is not in.
It's not in statute. I want to say it's even, it's more, again, trying to make that finding that the costs are known and defined. And one way of making that, knowing that costs are known and defined is if it's a reimbursable expenditure for something that they've already paid.
That's what the preliminary guarantee maximum price has done.
It's not exactly discretionary, but it's got to have some evidence that these are reasonably
so again,
accurate.
those firms have gone through the process as they always do of engaging their subcontractors as a part of the bid packages that they know are going to be in these projects to say, this is what the level of drawings that we're at. What is the price going to be? And yes, it will change. I mean, let's all be realistic, but it's going to change for the better because we needed to have some approval of this contract by our board, but it hasn't been approved by the county because it's not funded yet.
And Secretary Marshall, we have a history of saving money. We have a history of coming in under budget. So we are trying to be incredibly responsible to the taxpayers. And Brian will tell you, we meet all the time. I'm on them all the time, and the rest of our crew will. We cost. We really work hard to save money and have been very successful doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, my issue is, a lot of funding has been happening in the last couple of months. That some reasonable that you're close to the right estimates, since we don't have signed contracts on all this stuff. So
believe full-heartedly that we are.
We just finished the R. Brown McAllister Elementary School, which the school that's in front of you, the new elementary school, is a prototype of that school. That school's contract was, I'm just going to use round numbers, was $42 million. The number that you saw in front of you for this school is $44 million because of the length of time between that when that was contracted and now. So again, we have historical data validating where the costs are for these projects and that we feel confident they're going to come under the preliminary guarantee maximum price approved by the Board of Education.
I appreciate, and I expect the taxpayers appreciate that you're using the same blueprint in essence for this because you've been down that road.
All right, any other hands going up?
What is the difference, or what stands between the preliminary GMP and the final GMP?
The actual statutory bidding requirements that the CMs are obligated to take.
So you do not have final bids, is that what you're telling me?
There, again, it's a preliminary GMP based on the current level of drawings through their pre-construction exercises that they always perform as a part of our contract.
Staff has made a recommendation. It's time to let the board do its work. The totality of the projects that staff has added up regarding the things that they consider to be cured. This is something they are subject matter experts in, not myself. Add up to about $20 million, if I heard you correctly. So we can continue discussing this, or will people know how they're going to vote? Somebody can Does staff have anything else to say?
Treasurer, can I ask a question? What are we voting on? No motion yet?
We don't have a motion.
All right, just wanted to show that.
But the reason that I put forth that latest bit of information is that I thought that the county and the government commission members deserve to have, plan B, an option, what is cured, what is ready to go according to their criteria. And that's why I had them say those things.
May I speak one moment, Mr. Treasurer?
Let's get a motion on the floor, if you don't mind. Thank you. Okay.
Everything just froze.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Lost. All right. I don't know if anybody online can hear us, but if you can.
We can hear you.
Hear you and see.
Okay, we lost our video. If members, if you don't mind holding on for one moment. And again, we're still broadcasting, we're still live. So in our room, we've lost.
Hear and see in the room.
Okay, we can't see you, but so I'm glad we can hear you.
This is still, I can hear you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the gentleman requested to be heard, and prior to the vote, I would like to hear whatever it is that he was about to say.
Alder Holmes, I don't agree with you, and I'm asking for a motion from this board. So if
You disagree with allowing the board to hear what the gentleman has to say before we make a vote?
No, those are your words, Alder Holmes, not mine.
I'm sorry, what?
You've heard staff's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I would hope we would allow the gentleman to be heard. They are there, they are physically present. And
Noted. That's why we're going to get a motion on the floor. I didn't say he wasn't going to be heard.
Mr. Treasurer, so for the folks in the room, just so you know, everybody who's connected virtually still has video access to our remote members, and everyone can still see us in the room and still hear us in the room and hear our remote members. So it seems like our only missing component right now is that those of us in the room can't see our remote members, but everything else seems to be working okay.
Thank you.
I apologize.
We've had a lot of discussion. The staff is not recommending approval of this. I make a motion that this not be approved based on staff's recommendation. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion, a second, further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
seems to me that rather than outright denial, we ought to just give them time to cure it and bring it back next month and not make them file another time if they can cure it, if your staff thinks they can. And I'm not making this yet, but I'd like the opportunity. But if the staff thinks it could be cured by next month, why can't we make a substitute motion to table it till the November meeting to give them an opportunity to cure it?
I'll entertain that.
Well, I'll make a substitute motion that it be tabled till November to give them an opportunity to cure it in the staff's mind.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, do you now withdraw your motion?
Substitute motion takes precedent and has to be voted on, I think, without discussion.
Yeah, that is protocol.
Okay. We have a substitute motion to table this application for this Cabarrus County, the second application for Cabarrus County. We have a second to that motion. Clerk
And
will
that's
call the
just,
roll.
that's just till the November meeting if they have it cured.
Till the November meeting, till they have it cured.
If they have.
Yes. Motion is second on the table. Clerk will call the roll.
Did someone add in the words, if they have it cured, or is that what?
Well, I'd like to discuss that.
Can't discuss.
My original motion was to give them an opportunity to cure it in the mind of the staff.
I agree with that.
Opportunity to.
I would hope, if I may discuss this, I would hope that we would bring it back. They have said that there are some impediments to what staff considers a full cure. Bring it back and see where the progress is, rather than, leaving it totally up to staff on the cure issue. Because there may be 90% cured and 10% not, or something like that, and it would be a shame, given the needs, for us not to address it at that time.
I agree with you.
Well,
I would agree with Secretary Marshall on that. It appears to me that there may be some issue about the structure of these transactions that differs a little bit, and that there may not be a meeting of the minds here just because of the structure of these transactions. So I would like for it to, I certainly would like it tabled, but I would like for it to automatically revert back to on the agenda. I don't want to have to fight to get this back on the agenda as we had to this time.
I seconded the motion, so I agree with you.
Well,
And
also, for the
fine
record,
with-
I'm sorry.
I'm fine with the motion simply being it be tabled till the November meeting.
Second. Okay. Clerk will call the roll. Secretary.
All right. Would there be any point in approving the 20 that you think is cured? They can't go to the bond market with that, or probably unwilling to. Will that work in this case? You're not going to the market.
So because they have delayed the takeout, they are already on the sale calendar to sell that. And it was our information that was given to us that anything approved today was going to be added to that sale.
So it would be possible.
The information then would have to be updated to the bond community.
Would that cause an impediment of any sort with disclosures and all those things?
I'm not the.
Does the county have an opinion of?
That would be important to us. I mean, the primary question that I would ask in your computation of the 20 million that's cured, I'm not clear on the primary project on this list is this replacement elementary school that the superintendent has talked about. And I'm not clear on what is not cured on that project. And the other thing that I was going to say earlier is all of the issues that have been discussed here today in defense of staff, after we received direct guidance from the local government commission staff, which stated, even though the last two bands that you participate in, which is what we have used for these school construction projects very successfully, one that was approved in 2020, I think the other one was approved in 2022, that we just got the takeout approved on that. That process has worked very effectively for us, and we are totally convinced that it has saved us money. So once the local government commission staff said, we don't want to do business that way anymore, we don't think that's a good idea. So then we went back to our folks and said to Mr. Cohn and others and said, okay, we've got to narrow this down to the projects, only the projects that meet the specifications for a limited obligation bond. And so we had 2 elementary schools on that list. And because we were not far enough along on the process, we had to eliminate one of them, which we will be back for at a later date. And so that, I mean, can you tell me what about that piece of the application for that elementary school? That is probably the most important one, because we have a deadline to get those kids back in that building.
And just, we obviously appreciate the county heating staff's guidance about the structure of the financing, but again, our role, the oversight the LGC is to provide is that the amounts are being financed are known, and that there's transparency in what the costs are, right? So that's what we're trying to drive to here. So with regards to the specific deficiencies in the first project, as far as the application goes.
Basically, it's the preliminary numbers as the estimate is what we're, with the difference between the amount provided from the county and then the reimbursement or the estimate that they have given would be a difference of at least $6 million. So the true up those two numbers and then the final GMP is what we're looking for the school.
We can't do this on the fly. We have a motion and a second. It's guaranteed to be on the November agenda. And Mr. Philbeck.
I just want to say this is supposed to be a non-debatable motion. Let's vote.
Okay. All right, clerk will call the roll, please, Cindy. Thank you.
To put it on my Robert's rule.
Put it on the November agenda. Okay.
Says it is to be.
Go ahead, Cindy,
Substitute
please.
motion is yes, according to this, but that's okay. It's open to debate at all times. All right, where are we? We're voting on number 2, which was a substitute motion to table this matter until the next month.
Yes,
Philbeck, Falwell.
correct.
All right, Auditor Holmes.
Yay. In spite of the fact that it seems we follow Robert's rules sometimes and then sometimes we don't. I think it's important to follow protocol. But I will vote in favor of this motion. I am very concerned that it seems an issue that needs to be cured is not an issue of statute. But I will vote in favor of this motion.
Okay, that's a yes. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
Nay.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. I've been told that Ms. Harvey had to leave at 4:30 and Ms. Gumbel and Hoffman left 4 o'clock, 2 absent. Mr. Oh, okay. So, all right, 1 no. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that carries.
Motion's approved. Thank you. If the commission can stay with us, we've got some good news that we just need to share with you very briefly about Cliffside. Thank you. Cliffside Sanitary District and Eureka.
What they doing? What's that? Way up there, right?
No, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Treasurer.
Highlands.
Commission members, with regards to Eureka, again, and CSD, I'll provide brief updates on both. Again, both of those had financial control return as of August 31st. We are working with Eureka and their board. Our staff went down there last Wednesday to turn over the checkbook, all the necessary documents for them to take on day-to-day financial operations. Their concern right now is the outstanding bill they have to Fremont for their treatment of wastewater, and we will be meeting with Fremont, Eureka, DEQ, and others to try to see what kind of solutions exist or what kind of support we can provide in the appropriate role to Eureka. CSD, if you'll recall from our last meeting, they had no governing board for Cliffside Sanitary District. In the last approximately week, 2 members have been appointed by the county to fill those vacancies. At a special meeting and then an emergency meeting at the end of September. Just yesterday, the new Cliffside Sanitary District Board, again, there's 2 members, but it's a board, it's a quorum. We have 2 members, appointed a finance officer. And also, I want to thank our staff has agreed to serve as deputy finance officer just in a very short term, because the plan was to take the checkbook and all the financial information to Cliffside Sanitary District in Rutherford County as soon as the board was appointed. Clearly, that's not an option. And so that the staff there could be paid, so that bills could be paid, essential bills could be paid. Our staff, to me, went above and beyond, volunteered to continue to assist that unit to serve as deputy finance officer so those bills can be paid. As things settle down out that way, as appropriate, we'll take the items out there that are needed, and we'll continue to work virtually with those folks out there to get that controlled transition. But many thanks to the 2 citizens of the county who volunteered and were willing to serve on the board. And we will be working with them again to make sure that it's a smooth transition of all the financial operations for that board. So
let's give credit for give the credit to the recruiter.
The operator of the system out there really went above and beyond again, and literally went door to door looking for people to serve on the board. So he's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal asset to that area. So that's all, Trish.
Thank you, staff. Thank you for all of your work. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Second? No. Well, what happened?
I'll go with
Anyway.
Marshall and Burns.
All those,
Yeah.
clerk, call the roll.
All those in favor, say aye. Any and all of y'all online, just sound off.
Send it.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
4:36.